I am
Like,
Bridget,
I
and
I
I love
absolutely
Hansen.
yeah, I love Hansen.
All right, Bridget, I am super excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, what we're talking about is auctioneering real estate versus traditional real estate. So, Bridget, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Bridget Siler. I'm with Hansen Auction Group, and I am currently the real estate auction manager of our company. And
Cool.
all of the real estate auctions that we do come across my desk. So we sell everything from commercial properties, residential properties, waterfront and recreational properties, farmland, you name it, we've sold it. So yeah, it's fun. I enjoy it.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that always drew me to you, right? Obviously, we know each other through my wife, but you just have a passion for what you do, and it like exudes out every time we like talk and geek out together. So
Oh, thank
definitely,
you. Yeah.
definitely excited to see where today leads to that. So you talked about being the real estate auction manager. Now you have where you are today, you have both auction and traditional side of real estate, correct?
Correct. Yep. So my role primarily focuses on the auction side of things, but our business within our umbrella, we have added a conventional listing arm.
Cool.
So that's been under our umbrella for about a year and a half now. And it's been a great tool to work with sellers as they're looking to sell a property. If we have just more tools in our toolkit to offer options to allow people to sell property, whether it's by auction or by conventional listing. And we can get into the different types of auctions that exist too. So,
Yeah, yeah, it definitely adds a whole other layer, not necessarily of complexity but of
mhm.
options, right?
Yes.
And real estate auction here in the US, like it's a growing trend. About
Mhm.
10% of homes nationally now are going via auction, whereas years ago it was 4 or 5%. So have you seen an uptick in your area?
I would say yes. So the company that I work with primarily is based in Wisconsin. We have offices in Minnesota too, and we do work all across the state of Wisconsin. So from a regional standpoint, I don't have much data to like pin it down to a
Fair
region
enough.
specifically, but we've done work all across the state. I think we had properties in 30 plus counties last year, and we're on
Wow.
track for 30 plus county, 30 probably to 40, 50 counties this year. So
Wow.
we're bouncing across the state. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and oh, there's more I was going to add to it, but I'm sure you'll trigger something. So.
Fair enough. So, talk to me about the big difference, high level. What's the difference between going and buying a house at an auction and going and buying a house that you see on Zillow or through a realtor or something like that?
Yep. So the auction side definitely is a different approach. The auction side is the variable is the price. So the
Hmm.
date is determined, the terms are determined. The only variable to being determined that day is the price. So as
Okay.
you are a buyer approaching that market, we just ask that buyers do their due diligence prior to the auction, getting to know about the property. Typically, an auction property is sold as it is. So
Yeah.
doing those inspections prior to that is usually the buyer's responsibility. So there are some risks taken on from the buyer's standpoint depending on how far into the as is piece they want to go.
Yeah.
But also in that same component, then price can determine like, okay, so we're looking at a property that, yeah, probably needs some fixes, but it's being sold as is on auction and the price is the variable. Maybe I'll pay a little bit less knowing I take on some of that risk without inspection and I can take that on later after the closing.
Yeah.
So that piece of it is more interesting, but from a buying standpoint, definitely ask buyers to have their information ahead of time because when they approach the auction, it's going to be a cash non-contingent offer that gets put together.
Yep. Yeah, they gotta come with a check that day,
Yes.
right? Yeah, and that's
Yep.
a big, big difference. Let's actually, you triggered a few good questions in there, specifically around doing the inspection first. So, to
Mhm.
give context to everybody else here, in a traditional real estate process, hey, I see a house that I like. I
Mhm.
go look at that house, I put in an offer. If my offer is accepted, then I can do the inspection piece, I can do the financing piece all the way through the appraisal, yada, yada, yada. And then I get
Mhm.
to move into the house. How is that timeline for the auction side look?
For the auction side, I guess you can do inspections at any point. We've definitely had buyers arrange their own inspections prior to auction closing. which again is a risk at that point because the price hasn't yet been determined. And as you're bidding, that bid price might go higher than that buyer was willing to do, and they'd be out that inspection cost. So it's a little bit of that piece of it. A lot of times, typically, we don't see inspections happen on our properties. People will just take the risk of the as is after doing their own walkthrough, maybe with
Yeah.
their friend who's a contractor or whomever, to kind of get that good feel as far as you walk through and be like, yeah, I can definitely see like windows maybe need to be updated, that kind of thing. But from that also can help determine your price point that you want to maybe bid on the property then going into it. And then once that auction is done, the offer is signed and accepted, then afterwards it's a cash non-contingent offer. So a lot of times there's financing that'll happen to finance that offer, but it's again cash. So we leave enough of a window that financing can happen to meet the closing timeline. And
Hmm.
sometimes that means an appraisal that needs to happen in the behind the scenes and that sort of thing. So from the auction till closing, we'll usually have an appraisal come through. Sometimes there'll be an inspection come through, but at the end of the day, it is a cash offer. So if for whatever reason those terms change
Yeah.
the financing component, then we have to have a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. So in the traditional real estate world, when I say cash, that means no financing. Can you clarify when you're saying that there's no, it's cash, no contingencies, like, but there's
Yep.
still possibility for financing? I'm not getting that.
Yeah, so I know in the offer to purchase, there's the financing segment,
Yep.
and the offer to purchase for Wisconsin is I mean, zero out all of the potential contingencies. So it's cash, non-contingent offer.
Yep.
But that being said, from the time of that accepted offer till closing, I don't care how you need to get the cash to the table at closing if there is a financing piece in mind. Like,
Okay.
definitely do that. Will help facilitate at
Yep.
least the components that the financing company needs, but then by X date, pay us in full kind of thing.
Yes. Okay. I gotcha. I'm tracking now. So cash is a term, not necessarily literally saying here's a bucket of money, right?
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha.
So, and
Okay.
that goes back to the due diligence part too of doing that work prior to, of like just getting those pre-approvals in place, like knowing if you're going into a property, wanting to get some financing, just get that pre-approval and knowing about what price point you can get from the lending side. So that kind of determines what you'd be able to bid to in the auction.
Yeah, that makes sense. What happens if a buyer bids, gets accepted, cash no contingency, but then cannot get the financing and they have to back out? What is the risk there?
Yeah, so thankfully we haven't run into that in the sales that
Okay,
I've
good.
done. We have had instances of other communications. I mean, real estate is real estate. There's just going to be things that come up. So
Yep.
we do our best to we present all of our properties free and clear at time of auction. Of course, from auction till close, there's things that come up at times. We
Yeah.
try to hit all those red flags prior to keep everybody aware, but sometimes a flag comes up and we got to deal with that. So in the question of financing, if that financing component is not met and they're not able to close by that date, they just forfeit their earnest money into the transaction. And then that being said, too, this gets to be a more rare thing, and I don't know how much of this we'll put out there, but it's the component of like, okay, so auction ends, and then we need to get some survey work done to get the property divided or that sort of thing. And the survey, we're not able to survey how the property was conveyed. We have to go back and forth on that and figure out. Basically, it becomes a negotiation process between all parties because it's material adverse facts that are changing at that point, and
Yeah.
it
Acreage and
isn't.
everything.
And yeah, exactly. So it's a contract that needs to be negotiated further at that point, and we just cross those bridges as they come. Thankfully, we do our best not to do that, but it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people going into the auction setting are aware of that. They're aware of some of the gray areas, and they are intentionally going to purchase knowing that, hey, this could be a part of it, and it's just part of it. I accept it. Let's do it, right? By even showing up at
Correct.
the auction, they're willfully accepting that.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's from a seller standpoint. I think I talked a lot about the buyer side so
Yep.
far, but from a seller standpoint on the auction side of it too, it's great. It's a great method to set the terms and set the date of, hey, this is the date that we're selling this property, all at the same terms. Like everybody has a fair playing field. So come and bring us your best offer. So In the current market, that's been interesting to see because it's just like it's been killing me inside a little bit, at least from the 2020 to 2021 market, as far as prices through the roof. And I was like, these are so perfect for an auction, but because people were just going over asking price, and I was like, it's an auction at that point. So
Yes. Yeah,
I think
it
the
really,
opportunity for that is great from the seller standpoint, because you're going to get exactly what's on fair market the day that you sell it, and you can make your decisions from there.
yeah. And you generally have a pretty strong showing, especially because of Hansen Group's reputation of being very good at this. You guys
Mhm.
bring good buyers who are ready to go. They know the game. It's time to go, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we have a top-notch marketing department. I cannot brag about them enough.
I
They
I
do phenomenal work. They get our properties marketed very well and bring buyers to the table. And we do our job too, as far as pre-qualifying our sellers prior to, of just knowing the history of the property, what
yeah.
financial needs might be needed there. If their number is something that we can meet fair market value, if their number is way too high, it's like we don't need the practice. Like, take this somewhere else. So I mean, I hate to say that, but
No, no, no. We have it in the real estate on the traditional side as well, right? Hey, sir, I think your house would sell for about 250. No, I'm looking for 500. Yeah, I understand you're looking for 500, but it's very, very unlikely. So you're saying there's a chance. No, no, I'm not saying there's a chance.
exactly. Like, yeah, we can go through all the hoops and take it to auction, and I'll present the
Yep.
last number you get, but I'm guessing it's not going to be close to that 500.
Yeah. Well, and so that's really interesting. And I like the piece of, hey, here's the date, right? Here's the date we're going to auction. Here's
Mhm.
the date we're going to turn around and close, right? As long as
Yep.
everything goes smoothly. And we're working towards that. With traditional real estate, we often have that, hey, days on market right now are 4. We're anticipating that it's going to go within the first 4 to 10 days.
Yep.
Well, what happens on day 14 or day 21 or day 61 or day 101, right? And then,
Yep.
and I'm sure you have those moments too where like, hey, a house comes up to auction and the offers are so low that the seller just is like, no, I'm not letting it go at that price, right?
Yep. Yeah, we definitely. So in the auction world, and to back it up a little bit, so there's reserve and non-reserve auctions. A
Good
non-reserve
terms.
auction is called absolute. That's the legal jargon for it, and
Yep.
in the auction industry jargon for it. And we specifically don't do absolute auctions unless the seller specifically asks for it. So
Okay.
per UCC code, whatever, there's a segment in there that says if an auction is advertised as absolute, it's being sold with no minimum price. If so, then it's otherwise, if it's not being sold absolute or not advertised as absolute, it's assumed that the seller has the right to accept, reject, or counter that final price from the auction.
Put it right in the advertising, right? There's no false advertising with that. It
Correct.
is like, hey, want to bid a dollar? Go bid a dollar. Fine. But like, you're not going to get it. But hey, you'll,
Yep. Yep,
yeah,
exactly. It's all spelled out in our terms of the auction and that sort of thing. So it is an opportunity, but it's a way to get to that final number to then
yeah,
put into the offer versus having multiple offers kind of sneak in, and with different contingencies and that sort of thing. It sets that level playing field other than price, which a lot of sellers are attracted to, especially if they're looking to move quickly, like they have their
yep,
set timeline and can move make their next plans after that, whatever that might be, moving into a new neighborhood or that sort of thing.
yeah, definitely. Closing one door and opening another, right? Literally.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
literally.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Literally. As I was saying it, I
Yep.
was like, wow, could I have gotten any punnier on that one?
but
Right. Okay, and so one of the things that I do want to call attention to, right? Because right now, everything that we're talking about is really nice and rosy with the auctioneer side, right?
Mhm,
One thing as a buyer to take into consideration, not only do you have to have all your ducks in a line, but you
mhm.
also have to have your financing up front pretty damn set. But
Yep.
you also are on the buy side typically going to be paying the commission, whereas in a traditional real estate, about especially in this area, about 95% of the time, the seller's actually paying the commission
Mhm.
for the buyer's portion. Can you talk about that and what that normally looks like for you, if you can?
Yeah, and Honestly, Bryce would probably be a better one to speak to it, but I just know from my experience, our properties have always been bid price plus buyer's fee that equals your total purchase price.
Okay.
And then in the background, like this, it's still the seller's money at the end of the day. So that
Okay.
total purchase price is still the seller's money, and how we get paid is a contract between us and our seller.
Got
So
it.
that buyer's fee, yes, likely will be coming to us, but that commission rate might look different from the selling side of things.
Yep.
And it's something that we present when we talk with the sellers, and no commission versus commission. Yeah, obviously no commission. We're gonna do that type of thing. And I
Yeah.
do air quotes on no commission because it just depends on what the seller wants to offer.
Yeah.
And given that we do that buyer's premium, typically that gets chosen more often than not.
Yep.
But yeah, from that standpoint, the seller side of it, they have minimal other expenses going into it as well. So from a commission standpoint, it's upfront. Everybody gets to pay or has to pay that if they are the winning bidder of it, and it's clear from the beginning. So you know
Yeah.
that that bid price plus premium equals your total purchase price at the end of the sale.
Yep. And so if you've lined up your financing beforehand, it is just inclusive of that entire amount. Yep. So
Correct. Yep.
definitely something good to note. And I appreciated the way you worded that, right? Like it is transparent. If you're showing up to
Mhm.
an auction, again, you've done your due diligence, you've lined up your financing, you know that there is, what did you call it? A buyer's fee?
Yes. Yep. Or
Uh,
buyer's premium, buyer's fee, the terms interchange.
Yeah, you know that there's that buyer's premium right there on it too. So
Yep.
good, good. Okay. So for a home seller that is looking to go and sell their home on auction, what are some things for them to keep in mind or even to think about?
Yeah, so from a selling standpoint, I guess one thing that attracts people to the auction method is, of course, the as is piece. There's often, especially on a hot market, if you've got a property that's maybe just a little dated, going a traditional way might be on the market a little bit longer just because it's dated, maybe needs window updates, maybe needs new carpet, new cabinets, what that sort of thing. Taking it to auction, you really don't need to make any of those changes to the property as long as they're not material adverse facts that would deter the value of the property, such as high radon levels or that sort of thing.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, or an abandoned well or a well unabandoned in the basement kind of thing. We just had one of those recently. Yep.
Some weird
We had
stuff
to
pops up in real estate.
it does. It does. We had to cap a well in a basement that we're just like the city is like, we don't know what this is. It's like, cool, cool, cool. We'll get this figured out. So yep.
I I I've always thought about like finding some way to share some of the crazy shit that happens. And I
Yeah.
haven't found a way yet that I felt comfortable enough sharing some of the stories that I've seen. But the city going, "I don't know what that hole is right at the top of that. That is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with it, and obviously we couldn't sell it the way it was, so we had to had to figure it out.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
So anyways, going back to the selling side of it, that as is piece definitely appeals to a lot of sellers. And then also the commission standpoint. I mean, it's a negotiation at that point
Yeah,
between your sales rep and the seller, but a lot of times there is that buyer's premium, so that commission piece looks different for the seller.
yeah,
Sometimes can be 0% to the seller. And then aside from that, there's just kind of minimal expenses to just get going on the project. So at the end of the day, the sellers will get that bid price, maybe plus a little bit more, depending on how the contract was negotiated, and maybe be out some marketing expenses, and that's about it. And I mean, we just had one auction property that from start to finish, we just turned in 51 days. So
wow.
it's a fast process. I'm not going to say they all do that. The 60-day window is a little bit more comfortable for me, but
Yep,
51 is great.
yeah,
um, so just knowing that from start to finish, we can have it done in a couple months is huge.
yeah. Well, and not saying that the traditional side can't be fast either, right? On
Correct.
a cash offer, we can do it in under 30 days. We can, on average,
Mhm.
it's between 45 and 60. But you do have that opportunity that if it's priced wrong, if there's things that need to be fixed with the house, it could be sitting there 100 plus days, 300 plus days, right? So
Correct.
let's talk about it because especially now you guys have opened up into the traditional real estate side as well. And
Mhm.
you used a great term there of, hey, different tools for different times, right?
Yep.
When do you see that traditional real estate is the better option for a seller or buyer versus auction?
Yeah, I personally am not as involved on the conventional side, so I can't speak to it for our agents. But
Yeah.
I would say, as far as conventional listing or going to conventional listing, it's just a matter of the terms
Okay.
of what you're willing to do and accept as a seller going into the listing. Because then once you do have it listed, you'll be getting in offers with any array of contingencies and basically what you're willing to accept. Whereas the auction side of it eliminates that piece of it. So it's just a matter of what is a better fit for your current situation. If you're maybe shopping around for a house and it's okay that yours sits on the market a little bit while you shop, like that's totally fine. Or if you've got a property purchased already and you need to turn and burn the one you're in, like that might be a different conversation. So
Okay.
just different tools to approach that sale.
Yeah.
And sometimes conventional is a good fit and that's totally fine.
Nice. Makes sense. Bridget, one of the auction stigmas in the, marketplace is that auction homes are typically distressed or as is, with the emphasis of as is. What do you
Mhm.
think about that?
From the distress standpoint, like a lot of the real estate that we sell, I would say probably, I don't have the hard number in mind, but at least 90+% of our properties are not distressed properties. It's just
Yeah.
people in their next chapter of their businesses or their personal homes or what have you, and just choosing the auction method to sell. So it's definitely not a distress situation. Auction definitely gets used in distressed properties. We do have a couple lenders currently with properties online on our website, but it depends. I mean, it's a tool to use to sell your property, and one I hope everybody considers. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of options out there to sell a property.
Yeah. Bridget, I totally agree with you. I honestly, I've had the opportunity to work with you guys as, a photographer doing some of the drone photography.
Mhm.
And my mentality around auction properties was the fact that, like, hey, they're distressed. There's definitely something wrong with them. They're either aged, they're rotting out, or fire sale type examples. And
Yeah.
I will say that that hasn't been my experience with a lot of the properties that I've taken photos for you guys, right? They're beautiful farm properties. They're in
Mhm.
great areas. They're in relatively good shape. I appreciate at least seeing that other viewpoint out there and sharing it on this.
Yep, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you too, because it's great to kind of bridge the gap between auctions and conventional real estate. Because I feel like in the professional space, at least from a conventional side, auctions get looked at very differently, and it's
Yeah.
just another tool to sell property. Like there's plenty of property to sell out there, and it's just another tool available to sellers to sell. And I think, of course, I vote auction every time, but not every time. Again, there are scenarios that fit better in other capacities, but
Well, and
um,
it's like what's that joke about surgeons, and like you bring in a foot surgeon and he says you got a foot problem, you bring in a head surgeon, he says you got a head problem, right? You're an
yeah,
auctioneer. Your solution is auctions. I am
yeah,
a tech guy. My solution is more video and more tech. And
yeah,
that's going on, right?
yep,
So,
for
yeah,
sure.
that's funny. Are you comfortable talking about why Hansen?
Yeah, so I did an interview earlier this week with our marketing team I told you about,
Yeah.
and they asked that question and I fumbled through it so bad.
Oh, no. Do you want a redemption arc here?
I mean, I trust what they're going to be able to piece together with the what they
I
encountered.
am
Like
Bridget, and
I
I love
absolutely
Hansen.
yeah, I love Hansen. That's
Uh,
probably what it'll be. No, I don't know why I got so tripped up over it because I absolutely love the company I work for. Hansen Auction Group is a great, great team.
that is 100% going to be the opener to this. I love Hansen.
Thanks.
Oh,
Appreciate
yeah.
it.
That was fantastic. That's great. Okay.
I'm happy to talk to that. So
Yeah.
I
So, Bridget, why Hansen?
I obviously am biased and absolutely love Hansen Auction Group just from a standpoint of the company culture that's generated there. Bryce he started this company 5 to 6 years ago at this point now, and it's grown to 6 locations across 3 different states. And we're doing a lot of business. And I appreciate the culture that Bryce curates with his team as far as we're very team based. Everybody has everybody's back when needed. And it's just, we're here to do the best for the sellers. And that's the end of the day. That's who we're working for. So it's, it's not a space that curates this greed or money hungry culture. It's a space of
Yep.
like, we're problem solvers and we're here to solve those problems for our sellers. And what's that going to take? Sometimes it's figuring out, I mean, there was one property I did last year, which this is not typical, but we had the property listed, not listed, but we had the property in our possession, I will say, for 6 months. And essentially, I became a property manager as we were working through the auction process and getting it to closing. And like, I mean, we had to get snow removal figured out, and we had to get, oh gosh, there was an issue with the deck at one point. We had to get a carpenter out there and get that figured out. And it was just, I kind of became a property manager, but that just was was part of the pieces that called for the help in that scenario. And that's what we do. That's what we try to figure out. So I appreciate that we come forward. Yes, we're an auction company, but we're problem solvers. So we approach every scenario in a way that, hey, what's at the end of the day, what do you need and how can we help you to get there?
That's
So it's
awesome.
yeah, it's good. I love it.
And that's really kind of the mentality that we should all have in this industry, right?
Mhm.
And I love that you talk about how Hansen is a supportive group. It's not about cutthroating each other and everything else. And when I was first coming into real estate, that was a general worry of mine, is that I was going to have to fight and stab everybody just to try and get my little piece here. And one of
Yep.
the things that I love about Edina Realty, and when I stepped in and Dee Dee at the time was the manager, like, it felt like right off the bat coming home, right? It felt like, hey, if you need help, we're here to help. Our purpose is to help the clients. My purpose is to help you help the clients. And I was like, yes, this is where I want to
That
be.
resonates. Yep.
Yeah, totally does. And so
Yep.
that's awesome. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm sure there's more I could add to that, but maybe it'll be in
I
the other clips of the other video.
gonna be laughing about that for days.
I love it. I guess from a realtor standpoint, what can we do as an auction company to get you guys more involved as realtors from a selling standpoint, from a buying standpoint? I mean, we do offer a co-broke. So
Okay, there we go.
yeah, what other pieces can we do to kind of get the word out there? Like, hey, this is just another tool you can add to your toolkit. Like, do what you do best. But if there's a scenario to maybe maximize dollars on a property, check us out.
Yeah, and I think, so I love the fact that you transparently put out there, "Hey, there is a co-brokerage commission there." Great, cool, right? Because it's very tough, even when you're trying to be best for your client possible, it's very tough to go here and then, like, I'm gonna take 0 for this, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
I have turned down listings because I wasn't gonna be the right fit. I've turned down buyers because I wasn't gonna be the best fit for them.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that it's not hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
So on the flip side, hey, great, love that you're transparent about that. But I think the distinction is, when is it better to go to auction versus to go to traditional? Because I'm a marketer. I love great photos, great video, great social. One of our properties just hit 42,000 views, right? That's huge. And
Yep.
so, hey, I need to know that this specific situation is going to be the one where I want to use an auctioneer versus
Oh, sure.
doing what I'm doing, right?
Yeah, and that takes me to a point I wanted to bring up too, that brings to mind another tool in our toolkit from the auction standpoint. We do what's called a multi-par auction.
Okay.
And again, that's industry jargon, but multi-par is short for multi-parcel.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we'll do that on our farm properties or some recreational land tracks or that sort of thing. We've actually got one online right now, 200 acres. We're offering in 5 different parcels. And the opportunity that allows is we're able to divide the parcel as needed. That, of course, fits the zoning and planning local municipality needs, but divide the property and offer it on auction with division opportunity. And buyers can come to the table and bid on any one or combination of those pieces as the auction progresses. And then,
Yeah.
and honestly, we had one recently that the way we divided it, the map was great, but the way it sold surprised us all. Like, we did not expect, we expected like some acreage to stay with the buildings and sort of thing. And it sold way differently than we expected. And that wouldn't have
Interesting.
happened had we not curated the multi-part auction. So there's definitely in land tracts would be one to consider from a realtor standpoint. If you get into that,
Yes.
like maximizing dollars, that I think that one, yeah, it was that sale. We actually ended up selling it for 100,000 more than the seller was expecting on that property. So
That's not a small amount. So,
no, it's not. It was
and
a good win for sure.
that is a phenomenal example, right?
Mhm.
Because very often I've talked with people that have 60, 100, 150 some acres, and you're like, man, somebody would scoop up this four, somebody would scoop up this four, somebody would scoop up this four, but I don't know that side of the business very well. I know that's something that can work on there. And so that's a great point where I can go, hey, have you met Bridget? Right? And connect those dots. And again, now the seller loves me more because I connected them with an expert that knows how to do this. You love me because I've brought you business. And then I'm still not like cutting myself out of it. So that's really big. And now that I
Correct.
think about it, that multi-par is actually one of the very first drone gigs that we worked together on was up in Minocqua with like what 200 some wooded lots or something like that.
Yeah, I'm still amazed by that project.
It
I
was
look back on it, I was just like, how did I function through that one? It was yeah, it ended up it was 400 some parcel IDs. We sold in 200 auction lots. Ended up being 96 offers at the end of the day.
yeah.
And by the end of the entire transaction, 91 of those closed. So I consider that
Yeah.
highly successful. But
Yep.
yeah, it was a project, that's for sure.
The very nice, sweet lady, when I was out in her front yard taking the drone photos, came to me and she's like, "We've been here for so many years and we raised our kids. Do you think we're gonna do okay?" And I looked at her and I was like, "Are you kidding? Like you're gonna crush it."
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
gonna be just fine.
Yep. Yep. Just let us do our marketing. You'll be just fine.
Yep. Yeah, she was amazing. I loved her so much.
That's
Um,
awesome. Yep.
yeah. Do you think we'll do okay? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We got this.
cool. All right, Bridget, any other things that you want to talk about?
Yeah. If anybody is ever thinking of selling property, definitely consider the options that are out on the market. A conventional is a great way to go. Auction is also a great way to go. So just as buyers and sellers, just educate yourself on what's out there. And I'm always here to answer any questions. I know, David, you're happy to talk with people and answer any questions too. So two great resources, I would say.
That's amazing. Okay, so final question here. Bridget, give us a book recommendation. Something either fun or personal or business growth or something. Give us a book recommendation.
Oh, so my book recommendation, it's been a hot minute since I've read it, but it's changed my life, is a book called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson.
Nice. Return to Love by Marianne.
Williamson. Yep, it's actually up on my shelf right up over there.
Blurred out right there in the band
Right over
section.
there.
Awesome. Bridget, so much fun having you on here. Thank you so much. Any last words that you have for our viewers?
Oh, thanks for the time today. I appreciate getting to meet with you.